Why hello everybody, Spencer here, also known as Lego Dude 11, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing the newest Marvel film that just came out last week, Thor, Love and Thunder. So without further ado, let's discuss. Okay, so I just saw this today as of this recording. I saw it at 1:10 today, and then went to get Cold Stone ice cream with my friends. Made a vlog of it. Just came out earlier this week, coming out tomorrow, so YouTube time travel. This video hasn't actually been uploaded yet, but it's coming out on Friday, week after the movie came out. Got my week of notes, my list of notes here. It's kind of late in the day, so brain is kind of out of it, but making this review, got my list of notes here, and if you missed the vlog, be sure to check it out, card right up there. So, let's get straight to it. So, the first thing I always talk about is the score and the soundtrack for these movies, and this, if I haven't said this in other reviews I've done for movies, this is Michael Giacchino's year. His soundtracks are amazing, and I don't know what it is, how he like just does certain movies. It's like they call him up and it's like, hey, will you make this movie? And he's like, sure. I mean, he didn't do Multiverse of Madness, but I don't want to know like what his soundtrack would have been. I love Sam Raimi's score for Multiverse of Madness, but knowing that he did the first Doctor Strange, I kind of would have liked to hear it again. But that's just another thought in mind. He did the Spider-Man soundtracks, which are great, and this is no exception. I mean, he just did the Batman to Jurassic World to Lightyear to this, and then the Spider-Man movies. It's like, this is his year. It's like, what is going on? I love everything he does. Now, there is another composer that I didn't write down. I didn't recognize his name. I should have written it down. I don't know why I didn't. But they both collab and do this film together. Shockingly, like when going into this movie, I'm like, who are the composers? And what came up was Mark Mothersbaugh, who did the Lego movie and who actually did Thor Ragnarok, and who has done other animated films and other films. And I'm like, oh, okay, so he's going to do this one again. I guess the internet was wrong, and it happened to be Michael Giacchino and this other dude. But I love Michael Giacchino's stuff, and not only that, the other songs included in this movie are great. I mean, they just full Guns N' Roses stuff. Other songs, other artists' work are included in this film as well. Just Paradise City, Sweet Child of Mine, Welcome to the Jungle are all in this, and it's amazing. Taika Waititi tried to use different music. I mean, Led Zeppelin, the Immigrant Song is great in Ragnarok, but this film has a killer soundtrack, and I love it. So moving along there, I just am a sucker for this kind of music. Moving along here with the characters, I have a couple different points I want to mention on the characters here, but first thing I want to mention are the heroes. So before I get to the big thing people want to hear about, I want to mention some side characters. So Valkyrie's back. King Valkyrie, not ruling Asgard, but I guess kind of the higher up, leading Asgard in New Asgard, where they are in New Zealand, is great. I like her character back. We get Korg back, voiced by Taika Waititi and Meek. So those characters are returning here. Great, all out. I mean, they bring their all in this film. I definitely think, Valkyrie has had an arc throughout her films. She wasn't in Infinity War, but in Endgame, I definitely liked her inclusion there, and then you see her at the end of Endgame, and in this film, she definitely has some development throughout that. Korg is just great. I guess he was in Endgame briefly, but we don't see him talk a lot. In this film, he is just hilarious. I mean, he is the humor, which I will get to later, but he's hilarious, and I definitely would see a Disney Plus series of him, or something like a buddy cop movie, or like a buddy cop thing of him and Meek, something related like that. I would just watch any day, definitely. Him and Meek, like a Disney Plus series, a movie, whatever, would be great. And I mentioned Meek as well. There's another character I want to touch on briefly here. So those are the three characters. Guardians of the Galaxy, by the way, are in this movie for a little bit. I forgot about that. they're in this is not a spoiler, they're like, the only things you see of these characters, or of the Guardians, are in the first, not the opening scene in the movie, but like the first 10 or 15, 20 so minutes of the movie, and then they're gone. And that's pretty much the only thing you see them in the trailer, and that's it. And it's basically like, I'm not, this is a spoiler review, so if you, by the way, this is a spoiler review, so if you don't want to get spoiled, back out now. I'm not really like big spoiler mode, but I will touch on stuff later. But basically, when they leave, it's kind of the moment you kind of wonder, oh, is this like gonna like entryway, like is this the entryway into Guardians 3? So it's kind of my thought when I was talking with my friend. I said, this is kind of my thought, like that this is going to, like when they leave, that's going to directly go straight into Guardians 3, which kind of makes sense. Like what else are they going to do in between these two timelines? But I don't know, they could do something. I'm definitely wondering if that's going to go into the holiday special and then Guardians 3, but I don't know. Time will tell. So yeah, that's the only time that they're in there for that brief appearance there. So the Thor storyline, which I kind of touched, I kind of wrote down the storyline. So the goal, I'm talking about characters here. Thor and the Mighty Thor, the Jane Foster storyline, is something I appreciated. I love this relationship, rom-com sort of story that they were going for, that Taika Waititi actually at the red carpet premiere and in some other interviews that he had talked about, and I actually appreciated about this film. Not only because am I a sucker for like these romance, or not just romance movies, but like relationship type deals. Like I like these teen drama show, or like, you know, High School Musical, right? And these things like superheroes, kind of like Peter and MJ. I like that. I also like the Makari thing in Eternals. What else was there that was really good? Oh man, there was another one recently. There was a really good relationship scene that I loved, but I can't put my finger on what it was. It wasn't Shang-Chi. But anyway, I digress. This relationship was done better than what it was in the early Thor films, right? Thor 1 was this unique, fresh concept with about Asgardians, the deep mythology with the three, I forget their name, the three warriors, the Warriors 3, and that mythology behind Loki and the and Asgard itself. But this takes a new approach on the gods itself, which I actually will touch on later here. But the gods themselves, and this new relationship with the Jane character. And you know, something when I was talking with my friend, like how they just kind of went, they touched on how Jane became Thor. But it's kind of like as you go along with the movie, like when she picks up Mjolnir, like when she reads the book, it's just kind of like, okay, so like what's the actual point? What's the actual development? But then you learn more about this in the movie, and I love this. I've read a couple of storylines of this specific comic of the Mighty Thor character, and it's actually quite unique. And I love the depth and the way they take this character, Jane Foster herself. And I saw some things like, oh, I wish that it dealt more with Jane losing her hair because of the cancer factor that into play. But I think the way they played it was still well done. And I mean, it could have, I guess, been done better, but I think what the approach was, I think, was definitely splendid. And I don't mind I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think Chris Hemsworth back as Thor is just, oh, he's so charming. I love him playing Thor. I don't get bored at all. I didn't hear anybody talking about this, but I mean, some people are saying, oh, the OG actors are done. Like you know, we don't have Iron Man anymore. We don't have Cap. Hawkeye is slowly whittling down. Hulk, I don't know how much of Hulk we're going to see now if we're getting She-Hulk. You know, people were saying, oh, is Thor going to die? Oh no. I would love to see him again. By the end of this film, I want to see more of this character now. I would love to see more. And I don't know how much of him we're going to get. Like, we don't know what's the next time we're going to see him. We don't know if we're getting a Thor 5. We don't know. But I love him in this role. He is great. He's just humorous. He brings his all. He's a little bit serious in this film. He can be serious at times, like he was in Thor Ragnarok. He knows when to calm down, but he knows when to land a joke or two, and I love it. I just love him, and he is so muscular, man. Dude, this dude just puts serious work into his muscles. I mean, I'll work out, man, and I mean, I try to work out for this movie just to go see this movie, and I mean, out of all the other actors, Marvel actors I've seen, he is the most perfected. But anyway, moving on, I want to touch on the main, or not the main character, but the villain of this film, Gore the God Butcher. Whoa, mama, is this one of the best villains I have seen in the MCU? And not just because everybody else is saying it, but because I believe it. I mean, him and Thanos are probably like neck and neck, man. Christian Bale coming in to play this character is the best. I'm trying to think if there's like a better. I mean, X actor and X role is irrelevant, but I'm like, could have there been a different actor that should have played this role? But I'm like, Christian Bale knocked it out of the park. He just acted his notes on his beats on this role were just amazing. Like I wrote down, he was spooky. The character is spooky. And when these creatures come, I had no idea what the heck Gore's mythology was. And like when he uses the Necro Sword, like when he's introduced in the movie, he is depressing. Like it is so sad, his origin. And then you see him become the villain. You see him get the Necro Sword, and all of a sudden, when he starts fighting the two Thors, Thor and Mighty Thor and Valkyrie, and this big battle's happening, and you see him with the shadow monsters coming out of the ground, and I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. Like, this film is not really a horror film. It's not like Multiverse of Madness where people say, oh, it's a horror film, which I absolutely love Multiverse of Madness for that reason alone. But this film takes it differently with like a comedic, bright, vibrant approach with this dark villain that has this spooky vibe to him, and it's amazing. It's great, and I love it. And something that, you know, talking with other people about how the Thor movies are different. There's certain villains like where like are dark and evil. I mean, like Thanos has a dark approach, but he's this big purple alien dude. And you know, you go back to the first Thor movie, you have Loki, and it's not as dark, but then when you get to Thor: The Dark World, it's kind of just very dark, like, and not what you think of for kind of a Thor movie. But then when you get to Thor: Ragnarok, it's this bright, vibrant movie with Hela, who's kind of a dark, evil being as well. And Gore is kind of that same way. Like, Thor: Love and Thunder is this bright, vibrant movie with all these spectacle effects, but then you have this villain that's a dark, evil guy trying to kill all these gods. And I'm all for that. Like, give me more of this spooky stuff. Like, again, this is not a horror film. I like watching horror films. Like, Multiverse of Madness was that, and I dig it. But this is something that I like. When you can put in a villain like Gore into this movie, I dig it. I certainly dug every minute he was in, and I think that was a little bit too much, but I liked it. By the way, something I had touched on earlier, the effects and humor in this movie are great. Both of them combined in this movie are amazing. I mean, they don't go hand in hand, but the effects are all out great. There are some that I don't know could have been touched on. Like, I don't go in, like, I wasn't coming out of this movie going, oh, that was bad, that was bad, that was bad. I think there are some people that just kind of look at it and go, that was cheesy, I'm not really into that. But I came out of this movie going, that was great for a Taika Waititi film, and for a Thor movie, it was great. If it was any other movie, it probably would have been bad, but I loved it for what this was. The effects were splendid with the lightning effects. like the Bifrost and everything, to, you know, like the goat boat with the goats. The goat humor was hilarious. And again, like the Guardians humor, just the certain jokes land, like whether it's Korg with the Guardians, the goats laughing, there are certain aliens on the one planet, and you know, when the first battle's happening and there's these weird bird creatures, which are just hilarious. It's perfect for a Taika Waititi film. And you know, the like motorcycle machines are coming at Thor, and you see him do this, like the kick, the split kick, the Van Dyne, or the whatever it's called, the kick. It's hilarious. People might have found it stupid. I don't know. I was sitting next to my one friend, and he's like, I don't know what he thought about it. I was laughing out of, like, I love that, but some people might just find it like, oh my god, that's stupid. But I got a kick out of it. The humor and the effects in this movie are great. Some people might find it too silly and stupid, but if you liked Ragnarok like me, it's awesome. And coming out of this movie, I was talking with my friend, and he goes, the humor for me was great. Like, I heard hearing other people talk about it, I thought it was going to be sillier, like really silly than what Thor Ragnarok was. I think this was on the same scale, but there were other parts of this movie that are way different than Ragnarok, and I'm going to talk about that right now. By the way, there are some other references in this movie, and one of those I did want to touch on. This is one of the characters in this movie here. I'm not going to mention like a beat per beat like Easter egg thing, 'cause that's not what I do in these reviews. But there's a character in this movie that was awesome to see. If you guys have not seen the Disney Plus like one-shot video, or like the YouTube one-shot things that Marvel's done, they are great. And they did some after Thor Ragnarok came out, and some called Team Thor. And there's one with Daryl, or his housemate is called Daryl. And Daryl is in this movie. This is something that did not need to be included, because I didn't need him in this movie. But he was a pleasant surprise to see on the screen in this movie, making an appearance and getting to cameo in this film. So I guess cameo doesn't really need to be in quotes, but he got his screen time. I laughed at that appearance, and hey man, if we get more Daryl in the MCU, I'm all for it. It's not Daryl from The Office, but Daryl in the MCU. So that's that little appearance for you. So there's different plots to this movie. There's a couple different storylines in this movie that kind of meet up back at the end. So the first one is that I obviously talked about is the two Thors, the relationship, the mighty Thor Jane Foster storyline, her dealing with her cancer, which again I definitely dug. I dug all of that, loved it. And then the second one is Gorr the God Butcher hunting all the gods and taking them out, and Thor trying to save the day from Gorr, and in the process, Gorr steals some kids. Gorr kidnaps kids from New Asgard and takes them off, and to send them to the Shadow Realm, which is basically the moon. And Gorr has to go rescue the kids from Gorr and save the day from that, and save the day from Gorr launching eternity into the world, or I guess into being, I guess, and into our world. So that is those are essentially the two plots going on. And you know, in the big battle, in the big first battle, that when you meet Gorr and Korg, Valkyrie, Thor, and the mighty Thor all meet up, and Thor is just like, Jane, what are you doing here? And they have this little banter like, how long has it been? And that whole joke scene about how long it's been, 8 years, how many days, the second minutes it's been. And then they kind of are thinking of a plan to save these kids, and they go and try to get an army. So they go meet Zeus in this big arena, this big palace, and there's a whole bunch of different characters. Like again, this is kind of like this is the biggest scene, biggest time for references and Easter eggs. They talk about one character that was like a dumpling. That was hilarious. I laughed at that. I'm like, what? Dumpling, total Taika Waititi stuff. But then there's just other creatures and aliens and stuff that are probably big Easter eggs. I'm like, oh, I didn't catch that. But I love to see this whole. It was a beautiful like cinematic experience, like looking at this arena. And Zeus, done by Russell Crowe, amazing. I love this guy. He brought so much humor to it. This big battle, when they have the battle in the arena, it was, the effects in that arena were great. And then I almost got emotional when Korg. I thought Korg was actually gonna die, and I'm like, oh no, not Korg. And then you see him start talking with his face off. I'm like, oh, he's there, good. And then at the end of the movie, when you see Korg reference Dwayne Johnson when he's talking to this other race, Cronian warrior called Dwayne, a reference to Dwayne Johnson, who is The Rock. That was one of my favorite references in the movie. I'm like, dude, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. So yeah, so they go to see Zeus in this arena area, and their plan goes wrong because they start talking, and Zeus is like, "Come down in the center of the theater," and he starts talking. He asks him he tells him about Gore and the quest that they're on, and he needs an army. And Zeus is just like, "No, that's not what I do. I'm here for parties." He used a different word. He's here for the party, and you're not invited to my party. And so yeah, and then it goes off the rails, and then they have this big battle, which was epic, and it was a humorous time there, and I loved that whole scene. And then you think that Zeus, by the way, spoilers here, you think Zeus is dead, but we soon learn that he's not in the end credit scene, which I'll get to later. But I'm going to move on from that, which was just great, and to see Russell Crowe as Zeus. But we get to the final battle of this movie, and when you see Thor rescue the kids. By the way, when Thor is talking to Jane, and he's like, just stay here and rest. Just stay here and rest. I do love you. That was so emotional. I didn't cry as hard as I did in No Way Home, but that was more emotional than the whole Christine thing in Multiverse of Madness. That was so emotional, and he's like, I love you, and I'm like, I actually felt for that relationship. But then he goes to rescue the kids, and he's trying to stop Gore in the process. Some people might have found this really cheesy, but the way he uses his power with the kids for all the weapons, and the kid that had the stuffed animal was absolutely freaking hilarious. I laughed. I'm like, him using the stuffed animal with the lightning coming out of it, that was beyond hilarious and epic to see that kid doing that. Just all in the moment, him saving the day. And then Thor battling Gore at the end there with him, with all the kids fighting. This was a great battle. I mean, I don't know where it ranks in the Marvel scale, but this was just epic. And I can't stop using these words, thinking of words. I'm repeating the same words over and over. Also, I forgot to touch on this. There was also the battle with him when they're in the goat boat and they get to the Shadow Realm, which was this was before the scene where Thor says, I love you to Jane. And they fight Gore together. They're in the Shadow Realm, and they kind of get captured. Or they do get captured, not kind of. They get captured, and there's this whole dialogue between Gore and Valkyrie and Jane, like, ooh, like, just up and personal. And they're having some banter about who they are in themselves. And then they break free. Gore is asking where the axe is, because he needs the axe to open eternity. And in that, he summons the axe, Stormbreaker, I forgot the name, Stormbreaker. And he gets it and unleashes the lightning, and then they start battling each other with all the monsters coming out on the moon, right? There's this big, huge shadow monster. And I go, I am loving this fight. And at the end of the movie, I'm discussing it with my friend. I said, do you think that was cheesy? Because some people hated the CGI fight in Shang-Chi. I don't mind that movie, but some people hate it. And he's like, no, this was great. This was great for what it was. And I go, yeah, I thought the same thing. So I love that fight. Then they have the little talk, the Jane, I love you scene, and then they have the final fight with all the kids, with all the power, and them fighting, and Thor, Chris Hemsworth gets knocked down. You see Jane, you see the hammer come through with the Bifrost and whack Gore, and Thor's just like, and he's like, no, Jane, because the cancer gets worse when she becomes the mighty Thor. So she comes in to save the day from Thor. They have a little battle, and she says some lines to Gore saying, I totally missed the line, like, eat my hammer. I think I'm quoting correct. If I'm misquoting it, I apologize. But eat my hammer, and she smashes him down. She says, she calls him Thor. And she says, no, I'm the mighty Thor. Or Dr. Jane Foster. And she says, eat my hammer. But by the way, if it's not eat my hammer, I apologize. But she says her catchphrase. She goes all out, says her catchphrase, and they conclude the battle, and then you see Thor or Gore go into eternity, and then Thor goes in after, and you see him talking to his daughter, and that was pretty emotional as well. And then he dies, Gore dies, and the daughter becomes Thor's daughter, and I love these ending moments. Not these ending moments. I love this ending moment. The way the movie ended with Thor with his, I guess, daughter. I didn't know what to make of it with his quote unquote daughter. I guess uncle. I guess niece in a way. She called him Uncle Thor, so I didn't know if it was a niece, if he was pretending to be a daughter. I didn't know. And so, I love this ending. It was adorable. Just in my own interpretation, it was adorable, and I cannot wait to see the future of this going down the line. Wherever this ends up, I don't know if she's going to be a Young Avenger. I don't personally care. I'm interested in Young Avengers down the line, but anyway, I don't know what my friends thought of it. I asked my one friend. I didn't really get much information from him, but I thought that this ending was adorable. The way that it was so sad to see Gore go. Even though he was a villain, the way that he lost his daughter in the beginning, but then they got her back, and she was hilarious when she yelled at Thor, by the way, but just the dynamic of those two, the ending was adorable, and them flying up and using the two weapons, using Stormbreaker and Mjolnir, just going down, that was great. So I love the ending of this movie. I enjoyed the entire thing. I had a great time. Was it a perfect movie? No. By the way, I'm going to get to the end credit scenes and my rating and stuff. So the end credits, I guess I'll just go into it right now. I'm kind of interrupting my own sentence there. But the end credit scenes were two. There's one after the there's one after like the animation credits, and then there's one at the very end, which is typical for these Marvel movies, but any Marvel film. But the first one, by the way, there's big spoilers, but the first one shows Russell Crowe. Like I said, he's not dead as Zeus. He's not dead, and you see him talking to someone. He's just monologuing. You think he's talking, and then you see a character pan around. He says, "Do you understand me?" And it turns around. He said, and it's Hercules. He says Hercules, and Hercules pops up, which is Zeus's son, Hercules. And I don't know who the actor is. I'll have to look it up. I don't know who the actor is or what's going to happen with this character, but me and my friend were both excited to see Hercules on the screen coming into the MCU, because he's a great character in the Marvel comics, and putting him on screen here in the MCU is such a great inclusion. I cannot wait. And then the second one, I was actually surprised of the second one, because going in, I had heard something. I either got misleaded or it was entirely wrong, because I don't know what I heard going into this film. I heard that the second end credit scene had something to do with the character called Singularity, which has something to do with the A4 storyline and the Young Avengers, which I'm all for. I cannot wait for that. But, well, not A4s. I guess I'm kind of looking forward to it, but I don't know all that much about it. But I don't know when Jane Foster goes into eternity and she's dead now because she died of the cancer. Didn't die because she died to help out the eternity with the Gore storyline and with the Gore, his death and all that. So when she's in that eternity realm and she sees Heimdall because they're both dead, I didn't know if that hinted at singularity. Like, apparently I didn't fully grasp that concept, so it, I didn't know, like, I fully got what was going on in that end credit scene. Like, don't get me wrong, I knew it was happening, but I didn't know what the singularity character was there. But yeah, so I heard that that tied into the singularity character in Marvel, and if you don't know who that is, go look it up. It has something to do with the A4 / Young Avengers storyline, both of those storylines. So that I hope we're coming into the MCU at some point, which would make sense because they're tying in these Young Avengers and these A-Force, I guess A-Force. I mean, there's women in the MCU, so, you know, yay, I guess. But anyway, that's my thoughts on the end credit scenes. I totally dug it. I'm so pumped for this Hercules thing. I cannot wait. With the gods, and, you know, there were excuse me, there were some Celestials in this movie, by the way, which they don't really mention, but they were there in the movie, so hopefully down the line we get more about the gods and Celestials, which I assume we should be in, or Celestials and Celestials in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which I think that's definitely going to tie into, by the way, the future for Marvel I wrote down. The future, I think Guardians 3 is definitely going to tie Phase 4 all together, and definitely going to deal more with the Celestials and how Phase 4 all works. So I'm definitely pumped for it. I'm pumped for the future of Marvel, guys. I cannot wait. This movie is a blast. It's worth seeing. If you're not into the trailers or just not into Thor Ragnarok, I'd say skip this one, because you're just not gonna like this. You're gonna cringe at it. But if you're someone who likes relationships, rom-com movies, and definitely likes Jane Foster, like if you watch the trailers and go, oh, this character's back, I don't care, then don't watch this movie. Why are you going to see this movie if you're not going to enjoy it? That's kind of my question on these things. Like, people watch the trailer and go, oh, great, another Marvel movie with this character? That's kind of my question. But at any rate, people like me, like Thor Ragnarok, that are interested in this type of stuff, totally dig it. My friend had a good time. We all had a good time at this movie, my friends and I. But yeah, down the line, like, I would love to see Thor again. I'm excited for what we got coming down the line for the MCU. I still have my issues with the shows, but that's another story for another time. I definitely am liking the shows. I just feel like they're trying to get in the swing of things with Disney Plus. I know it's been like over a year now, but I still feel like they're trying to resolve their problems, figure out what's working, what's not working, and all this good stuff. But I definitely enjoyed Thor: Love and Thunder. At the moment, as of just seeing it today, like literally today, would give it an 8 out of 10. That's my, I think an 8 out of 10 is justified for what I think it is. I mean, there's two spots. I mean, I wouldn't even give it a 9 out of 10, but I feel like that's too harsh on it. I think Ragnarok deserves a 9 out of 10, and this deserves an 8 out of 10. Doesn't mean I don't like this one. I just 8 out of 10. So I'm going to say. So I love this film. Definitely spectacular. If you're into the comedy, or I would almost say comedy and humor, if you're into this type of humor and like spectacle and stuff, definitely go see it. Christian Bale, like, the villain is worth it. If you're worried about Thor, by the way, he's great. If you're worried about his look too, he's great. He's absolutely phenomenal. Go see this movie. 8 out of 10. That's my thoughts on Thor: Love and Thunder. By the way, guys, click the card up there for my vlog about this movie. Don't forget to leave a like, follow me at Boba Fett Jedi Master. Link is down below. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me. Don't forget to keep calm and play Lego. See you guys in the next review. Peace out. Bye, everyone.